Imagine you're scrolling through social media when you see a heated debate about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. One person argues, anyone who puts pineapple on pizza has no taste buds. Another fires back, well, you probably don't even know what real Italian food is. And someone else chimes in, either you love pineapple pizza or you hate good food. There's no middle ground. Now, I know what you're thinking. Really? We're starting a philosophy video with pizza drama. But here's the fascinating thing. This silly argument contains three of the most common thinking traps that derail conversations, destroy relationships, and keep us from reaching the truth. And once you learn to spot these traps, you'll start seeing them everywhere, in politics, in family discussions, in your own mind. Welcome to Dialectic Mind, where we explore the art of thinking clearly in a world full of mental fog. Today, we're diving into something that will genuinely change how you navigate every conversation, every decision, and every belief you hold. Learning to think like a philosopher. Now, when I say thinking like a philosopher, I mean developing the mental tools that have helped humanity's greatest thinkers cut through confusion, challenge assumptions, and discover profound truths for over 2,500 years. Think of this as your philosopher's toolkit. By the end of this journey, you'll know how to construct rock-solid arguments, spot flawed reasoning from a mile away, and ask the kinds of questions that unlock deeper understanding. Most importantly, you'll feel confident engaging with any idea, no matter how complex or controversial. So let's start with the foundation. What exactly is logical reasoning, and why should you care? Imagine your mind as a detective agency. Every day, you're presented with mysteries to solve. Should I trust this news article? Is my friend giving me good advice? Why do I believe what I believe? Logic and reasoning are your detective tools. They help you gather evidence, connect the dots, and reach reliable conclusions. But here's where it gets interesting. Most of us think we're pretty good detectives already. We make decisions, form opinions, and navigate life reasonably well. So why do we need to upgrade our thinking toolkit? Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. A few years ago, I had a friend, let's call him Marcus, who was convinced that a particular diet would cure his chronic headaches. His reasoning seemed solid. I started this diet 3 weeks ago, and my headaches are almost gone. This diet is amazing. Now, Marcus isn't stupid. He's a successful engineer who designs complex systems for a living. But in this case, his detective work had some gaps. He hadn't considered other factors. Was he drinking more water? Getting better sleep? Had his stress levels changed? Was this just a temporary improvement? This is what philosophers call the difference between thinking and thinking well. We're all natural thinkers, but clear, logical reasoning is a skill that needs to be developed, just like playing piano or cooking. And the stakes are high. Our reasoning shapes our beliefs shape our actions, and our actions shape our lives. So what exactly is logical reasoning? At its core, it's the art of moving from what we know to what we can reliably conclude. It's about building bridges between facts and insights using solid, trustworthy methods. Think of it like constructing a bridge. You wouldn't build a bridge by randomly throwing materials together and hoping for the best. You'd follow engineering principles, use quality materials, and test every connection. Logical reasoning works the same way. It gives us principles for building reliable mental bridges from evidence to conclusions. The beautiful thing about logic is that it's not just for academics or debate clubs. Every time you figure out why your car won't start, plan a vacation, or try to understand a friend's perspective, you're using logical reasoning. We're just going to make you much, much better at it. But before we learn to build solid arguments, we need to recognize the faulty construction all around us. So let's dive into the most common ways reasoning goes wrong. The logical fallacies that trip up even brilliant people. Remember our pizza debate from the beginning? Those weren't just random insults flying around. They were textbook examples of logical fallacies. These are like optical illusions for the mind. They seem convincing at first glance, but they crumble under examination. Let's start with the first trap, the strawman fallacy. Imagine you're having a friendly sparring match with someone. You're both wearing protective gear, following the rules, having a good time. But suddenly, your opponent stops fighting you and starts beating up a scarecrow in the corner. Then they declare victory. You'd think they'd lost their mind, right? That's exactly what happens with the strawman fallacy. Instead of addressing your actual argument, someone attacks a distorted, weaker version of it. A straw man that's easy to knock down. Here's a classic example. Sarah says, "I think we should invest more in renewable energy." Tom responds, "So you want to shut down all the power plants and leave everyone in the dark? That's ridiculous." Notice what happened. Sarah made a reasonable suggestion about increasing renewable energy investment. Tom turned this into an extreme position about shutting down all power plants, something Sarah never said or implied. He built a straw man and knocked it down. This happens constantly in political debates, family arguments, and online discussions. Once you start noticing it, you'll see it everywhere. The antidote: always ask yourself, am I responding to what they actually said or to a caricature I've created in my head? The second trap is the ad hominem fallacy, attacking the person making the argument instead of the argument itself. Ad hominem literally means to the person in Latin. Picture a courtroom where a prosecutor is presenting evidence about a crime. Instead of examining the evidence, the defense attorney stands up and says, "Don't listen to him. He has terrible fashion sense, and his car is old." You'd think the lawyer had lost their mind, right? The prosecutor's wardrobe has nothing to do with the quality of the evidence. Yet this happens all the time in real life. Someone presents an idea, and instead of evaluating the idea, we focus on irrelevant personal characteristics of the speaker. Going back to our pizza example, well, you probably don't even know what real Italian food is. This completely sidesteps the actual question about pineapple on pizza and attacks the person's supposed knowledge or credentials. The tricky thing about ad hominem attacks is that sometimes they feel satisfying. It's easier to dismiss someone than to wrestle with their ideas. But here's the philosophical truth. A brilliant idea doesn't become wrong just because it comes from someone you dislike, and a terrible idea doesn't become right just because it comes from someone you admire. The third trap is the false dilemma, presenting only two options when more possibilities exist. It's like being offered chocolate or vanilla ice cream when a shop actually has 37 flavors. Our pizza example again. Either you love pineapple pizza or you hate good food. There's no middle ground. This creates an artificial binary. You must choose between loving pineapple pizza or being someone who hates good food entirely. But reality is much richer. Maybe you love good food, but prefer traditional pizza combinations. Maybe you enjoy pineapple pizza sometimes, but not always. Maybe you think it's fine, but not your favorite. The false dilemma eliminates all these nuanced positions. False dilemmas are everywhere in politics. You're either with us or against us. In relationships, if you really loved me, you'd do this. In career advice, you either follow your passion or you'll be miserable forever. The antidote? Always ask, are these really the only two options? What other possibilities exist? Now, recognizing these fallacies is incredibly empowering. You start to see through manipulation, avoid mental traps, and have much more productive conversations. But spotting bad reasoning is only half the battle. The real magic happens when you learn to construct solid arguments yourself. Let's talk about constructing arguments that can withstand scrutiny. Arguments so well-built that even your harshest critics will have to respect their logic, even if they disagree with your conclusion. Think of building an argument like constructing a house. You wouldn't start by slapping a roof on a bare ground, right? You begin with a solid foundation, build sturdy walls, and then add the roof. Arguments work the same way. The foundation of any argument consists of your premises. These are the facts, observations, or beliefs you're starting with. Think of them as the concrete and steel that everything else rests on. Your conclusion is the roof, the point you're trying to make, the place you want to take your audience. Here's a simple example. Premise 1. All mammals are warm-blooded. Premise 2. Whales are mammals. Conclusion. Therefore, whales are warm-blooded. This argument has what philosophers call validity. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. The logic is sound, but validity isn't enough. We also need our premises to actually be true in the real world. When an argument is both valid and has true premises, we call it sound. Here's where many arguments fall apart. People often rush to build their conclusion without checking their foundation. It's like building a beautiful house on quicksand. Let me show you how this works with a more complex example. Suppose I want to argue that reading fiction makes people more empathetic. Here's how I'd build this argument. Premise 1. Empathy requires the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Premise 2. Fiction allows readers to experience life from multiple perspectives and understand characters' inner emotional lives. Premise 3. Regular practice of perspective taking strengthens empathetic abilities. Conclusion. Therefore, reading fiction regularly develops empathy. Notice how each premise needs to be defensible. I need evidence that empathy involves perspective taking, that fiction actually provides this experience, and that such practice improves empathetic abilities. Each premise is like a load-bearing wall. If one fails, the whole argument might collapse. But here's what separates good thinkers from great ones: the willingness to stress test your own arguments. Before presenting this argument, I'd ask myself, what are the weaknesses? Could someone read fiction but remain self-absorbed? Does the type of fiction matter? Are there people who are naturally empathetic without reading fiction? This isn't about destroying your own arguments. It's about making them stronger. It's like a blacksmith who hammers metal to remove impurities and create something more durable. The most powerful arguments acknowledge their limitations and address potential objections. This doesn't weaken your position. It shows intellectual honesty and makes your argument more persuasive to thoughtful people. Remember, the goal isn't to win debates or silence opposition. The goal is to get closer to truth, to understand reality more clearly, and to help others do the same. Which brings us to one of philosophy's most powerful tools for achieving this goal. About 2,400 years ago in ancient Athens, there lived a man who revolutionized thinking not by giving answers, but by asking better questions. Socrates had a radical insight. Often, the most profound learning happens not when someone tells you what to think, but when they help you discover what you already know or realize what you don't know as clearly as you thought. The Socratic method is like being a mental archaeologist. Instead of imposing ideas from the outside, you dig deeper into existing beliefs with carefully crafted questions, uncovering assumptions and revealing insights that were buried beneath the surface. Let me show you how this works with a story. Imagine your friend Jake comes to you frustrated. I can't stand social media anymore. It's nothing but fake news and people showing off. I'm thinking of deleting all my accounts. Instead of immediately agreeing or disagreeing, you could use Socratic questioning. Me, that sounds really frustrating. When you say fake news, what specifically do you mean? Jake, misleading stories, stuff taken out of context, people spreading rumors. Me, I see. And you mentioned people showing off. Can you give me an example of what that looks like? Jake, everyone posting their best moments, vacations, promotions, perfect meals. It makes me feel like my life is boring in comparison. Me, that makes sense. So if I understand correctly, you're bothered both by false information and by feeling inadequate when comparing yourself to others. Jake, yeah, exactly. Me, here's something I'm curious about. Do you think these problems are unique to social media, or do they exist in other parts of life too? Jake pauses. Well, I guess people have always gossiped and spread rumors. And people have always tried to present their best selves in social situations. Me, that's a really insightful point. So what do you think is different about social media that makes these age-old human tendencies feel more problematic? Jake thinks for a moment. Maybe it's the scale and the constant exposure. In real life, I'm not constantly bombarded with everyone's highlight reel. Me. So it sounds like the issue might not be social media itself, but perhaps how you're using it or how much you're exposed to it. What do you think? Jake, you know what? You're right. Maybe instead of deleting everything, I could be more selective about who I follow and how often I check these apps. Notice what happened here. You didn't lecture Jake about social media or tell him what to do. Through questions, you helped him clarify his specific concerns, examine underlying assumptions, consider broader context, reach his own insights, generate his own solutions. This is the magic of the Socratic method. People are much more likely to embrace insights they discover themselves than ideas imposed from the outside. But here's the crucial part. This isn't about manipulation or leading people to predetermined conclusions. It's about genuine curiosity and helping people think more clearly. The questions need to be authentic, not rhetorical traps. You can use this method with yourself too. When you hold a strong belief, ask yourself, why do I believe this? What evidence supports it? What might someone who disagrees with me say? Am I considering all relevant factors? The Socratic method transforms conversations from battles to be won into mysteries to be explored together. It turns debates into collaborative thinking sessions. And most importantly, it helps everyone involved, including you, reach deeper understanding. We've covered a lot of ground today, but think of this as just the beginning of your journey into clearer thinking. You now have a philosopher's toolkit. You can spot the most common reasoning traps, build arguments that can withstand scrutiny, and ask questions that lead to genuine insight. But here's the beautiful thing about these skills. They get better with practice. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to apply what you've learned. Every news article becomes a chance to identify assumptions. Every disagreement becomes a laboratory for testing ideas. Start small. In your next conversation, try catching yourself before making a strawman argument. When someone presents an idea you disagree with, resist the urge to attack them personally and focus on the idea itself. When facing a difficult decision, map out your reasoning like building a house. Premises first, then conclusion. And remember the Socratic spirit. Approach every belief, especially your own, with genuine curiosity rather than defensive certainty. The goal isn't to win arguments. It's to understand reality more clearly and help others do the same. Philosophy isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions, thinking more clearly, and remaining open to the possibility that there's always more to learn. That's not a weakness, that's wisdom. The ancient Greek philosophers had a phrase, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Today, you've taken a significant step toward examining not just your life, but your thinking itself. And that makes all the difference. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep thinking like the philosopher you're capable of becoming. Until next time, this is Dialectic Mind, reminding you that clear thinking isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a way of living more wisely in an uncertain world.